Welcome into a very special edition of our Cubs REKAP Podcast, a presentation of our REKAP YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. That's my partner, Gordon Wittenmyer, and that's the president of the Chicago Cubs, Jed Hoyer. Thank you. You always come in every year for us. We greatly appreciate you being here.
Thanks for being here. You didn't even shovel the driveway for me.
I came racing from radio.
My feet are soaked, but hey,
I texted Jed. I said, I'll be here by 9:40. I walked in at 9:39.
We're trying to get our ratings up with you here so we can afford to have the drive shovel.
Yeah,
perfect. Perfect.
So I want to start with, over the last few days, I read a Bleacher Report article that ranked the teams, and they ranked the Dodgers number one. The number two team in baseball, they said, is the Chicago Cubs. Then ESPN comes out with an article that said, here are the 5 breakout teams. The Chicago Cubs are one of them, and it said floor 89 wins and the ceiling 99 wins and legitimate World Series hopes. Is this the first season you're going into going, I really, really believe we are in that discussion?
Yeah, I try not to pay much attention to the outside projections and stuff, but I will say, internally, I think we feel good about our team. Obviously, the Brewers are going to be always difficult. They've proven that. I think our division is really good. I think St. Louis is taking a bit of a step back, but I think the other 4 teams are actively trying to win. And the National League is aggressive. So we've got our work cut out for us, but I do think we have a good team. I think we're very balanced. But no one's ever won anything in the winter. And that's the focus, is just, are there other things we can do to improve? Are there places we can add depth? Because I do think we're, on paper, I think we're a solid team, but we have to figure out, different ways we can add and continue to get better.
I know you guys have your own internal projections and your own PECOTAs or whatever they are. One, do they align with some of these other things Cap's talking about? And do you have enough specifically pitching? You said depth. Is that where you're at now, adding depth?
I mean, we'll always, if there are moves to be made that can continue to raise our projections, we'll look at it. But I just always think to myself, the seasons are messy and things are going to happen. Last year, 3 or 4 starts in the season, Justin Steele was out for the year. You hope that stuff doesn't happen, but it's not realistic to think it won't happen. Schwarber blew out his knee in the 3rd game of the season that year, and we had to kind of reconfigure everything we did. So I think that's always my mentality, is that the way seasons are played out are messy, and you have to think about depth and think about different ways that you can cover various injuries or poor performance. And that, it wouldn't be fun if we just played it on paper, right? It wouldn't be the season, and so we're always kind of thinking about that and trying to figure out what we can do to make sure we can withstand certain issues.
Before we talk about this winter, you've done a lot so far, a lot of improvements to the team. Last year at the deadline, the 30th of July, I said to Gordon and to Guff, they're tied for the 2nd best record in all of baseball. You were tied with the Dodgers. I think only Milwaukee had a better, or Detroit, one of them had a better record. But at the deadline, the price was stupid high for whether it's Mackenzie Gore or Joe Ryan. And we didn't see those guys get moved. But you did not get uber aggressive. Why?
I really didn't feel like there was uber aggressive moves to be made. The thing that would have helped us the most was to get a young, controllable starting pitcher. The prices for those guys were too high. And they didn't move. I think the industry felt the same way. If you look back, the Cabrera didn't move, Gore didn't move, Ryan didn't move. None of the guys from the Rays moved. So I think that was just the nature of the market. The prices were just too high for those starters, and that would have, like I said, that would have been the move. And then the other thing that never gets talked about is, like, sometimes you just don't match up with a team. There were a few players that we had interest in that, that the way what they were looking for just didn't match up, and that's just the nature of it. I say the same thing in free agency. Like, if you build your offseason around 1 or 2 players and that guy happens to not want to go to your city, or it just gets blown out of the water, like, that happens in the trade market. But there's no question, in a perfect world we would have added more starting pitching at the deadline. but the controllable pitching wasn't there to be had.
Well, I'm curious, why not do more with the non-controllable guys, right? Like look, I cover the Reds these days on a daily basis. I thought they had a really good deadline. They added the same number of major players that you did, a starter, a reliever, and a position guy. They didn't spend a hell of a lot to do it, and I thought they got a lot. They filled a lot of needs. I don't know how, except Kittredge mostly. I don't know that you filled much at all in what you needed then. And a guy like Zach Littell would have been an upgrade from Soroka, and could have been. I
thought Littell was that was a really good job by them. I mean, candidly, we had a differing of projection on that one. And in the end, the Reds were right. I mean, he did a really good job for them. I thought Andahar was a guy that came in and played well. So, yeah, there's no question. And sometimes it's the smallest moves that make a difference at the deadline. But I thought they did a good job. And I mean, those are the questions we're asking later in the season. Like, okay, were we not high enough on this guy? Should we have been more aggressive on this guy? And ultimately, we trust our models and we trust our scouts, but you have to ask those questions at the end. Like, did we not value a guy high enough? And I thought Littell was probably more than any pitcher that we talked about at the deadline was a guy that we had those questions.
Do you feel like where you're at now, you're more willing to go, boy, that's out of my comfort zone if you're healthy and at the deadline than maybe you have been since you took over for Theo as president?
Well, I think you have to see where you are when you get there. I mean, when I think back on 2015, we weren't that aggressive. I think we just added Dan Herron that year at the deadline. We weren't super aggressive. We talked about some deals that were too expensive. I thought 16, it was just very clear we were the best team. We had one big hole, and so we were willing to be really, really aggressive. I think you have to see where you are when you get there. And I don't think you can sort of anticipate the deadline. I think you have to, okay, when you're there, like, how does this look? What are our holes? And I look back on 16, it made a lot of sense. It was very clear, like, that was our missing link. And I think it played out that way in the postseason.
I just had one other deadline question, and then we can move forward to this offseason. But when you look at last year, the timing of your extension right before the deadline, what do you make of any skeptics or critics that would say, well, okay, that might have influenced maybe how things went down at the deadline, one way or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys know me pretty well. Like, to me, the most important thing for me is making sure that we can be competitive year in, year out. There are years where I think it makes sense to be really aggressive at the deadline when it's there. Like I just mentioned, like we did in 16. I think about other years in the past, we've been aggressive. I think what we would have been really aggressive on was controllable pitching. We didn't feel like that lined up for us and made sense for the long term. But ultimately, like extension or my contract stuff's not going to impact my competitiveness, and so it didn't really have any impact.
In terms of your philosophy, and I think it goes back to when you first got here with Theo back in fall of 11.
Too long.
You guys, that's a long time, man. A lot more gray hair, right?
Oh, well, I didn't have any then. I know.
So you guys, Chapman was an in-season trade. You tried it with Craig Kimbrell, but you really have always subscribed to the philosophy. I'm not pushing all my chips on one guy. I'm going to spread it around. Brad Keller's a minor league invitee, and the pitch lab helps him get to 99 miles an hour, and he pitches really well, and now he's making $30 million in Philly. This winter, your philosophy shifted some. Like, I don't remember you spending the money that you spent. Hunter Harvey, who's an injury candidate but a hell of a pitcher. Like, you really have pushed chips in that I haven't seen you do before. Why?
Well, a couple of things. We had a lot of holes in the bullpen. I mean, we, Kittredge and Keller. Thielbar was a free agent. We just had a number of holes we needed to fill in the bullpen. So that was number one. Maton is a guy that we were willing to do a multi-year deal. We've been kind of loath to do multi-year deals in the bullpen. I mean, my philosophy in the bullpen, it is a bullpen super important. Like, absolutely, the way the game's played today, it's really important. But like the same day, Luke Weaver and Brad Keller signed big deals. And, Luke Weaver is a minor league free agent 2 years before, having bounced around as a kind of a failed starter. Brad Keller last year was a minor league free agent, having bounced around as like a failed starter. And, what I really believe is like that's our job, is to try to go out and find the next Luke Weaver or the next Brad Keller. I'd rather use our money to go sign starting pitching, or go sign players that have, kind of lower error bars, so to speak, and I think that, there's going to be years that's going to be a challenge, but I think over the long term, I just think taking our financial resources and focusing them on, let's try to build a good bullpen. Let's be smart about it, as opposed to just going and spending a lot of money on it and getting tied up in multi-year deals that end up choking you in other ways. So that's been our philosophy. I think it generally works. It doesn't, it comes with some level of trepidation every year. You're always like, okay, like there's risk here, and that going in, but at the same time, like there's also risk in the 3-year deal for a relief pitcher. So that's what I try to remember all the time with all these different things is, there's risk on both sides of these things. You talk about, there's risk in trading prospects, there's risk in not trading prospects. And I think that with relievers, there's risk in trusting, lower investments, minor league deals, 1-year deals, but there's also risk in tying up a lot of your financial resources in multi-year deals to relievers as well.
So you mentioned you'd rather spend your money on starting pitching. How deep did you get anywhere in the free agent market for starting pitching this year? Or was it always going to be mostly focused on trying to get the right trade done for a controllable guy?
We did have some real conversations about, I would say, expensive free agents. There's a couple of guys that were out there that we projected really well that we thought would be a significant upgrade.
Cease one of them?
There were some guys out there that we talked about. We probably shouldn't have traded before, but no, we had some conversations about those things and talked about some, significant dollars, but ultimately didn't work, and we kind of pivoted.
Hey, are you surprised that when you guys traded Cease in that deal, I think the consensus opinion around the team was that he was probably going to wind up as this leverage reliever. Are you surprised he's produced the innings he has and become the starting pitcher that he has at that level?
I think the innings and the durability is probably the thing that's most surprising. Really, he's a great kid, really bright. I think he's taken his career really seriously. He takes care of his body, all those different things that give you the chance to have that durability. But yeah, I think when you draft a kid who just had Tommy John at 18 years old, I probably would have been surprised if you said, "Hey, by the way, this guy's going to make every start for the, his entire, his 7 years, wherever he's been in the big league." So yeah, I think that part I think has been surprising, but good for him. Like I said, he's a great kid, and we talked to him this winter, and he's matured really well.
So there's this chart out there that somebody called my radio show today about it. There's this chart that shows revenue, payroll. You know the chart I'm talking about. It's in every newspaper. And people are like, well, the Cubs only spend this percent. What are people missing, or has the criticism been valid that there isn't enough in terms of revenue? Like, why don't they spend like that team? I know the Dodgers are at an entirely different level because of their TV deal.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are. First of all, they're probably still making money with this payroll. They have an unbelievable TV deal. I think Ohtani and the things they've done in Japan,
$1 billion in gross revenues
have been incredible. Like so, when you think about the Dodgers and what they've done, it is an anger for me. It's envy, in the sense of like they're just from a financial standpoint, they're able to spend this much money and still they're doing great, and they're playing within the rules. These are the rules, and they're willing to spend 150, 160 plus million in taxes every year to do it. But part of that is that they can. But no, I don't listen. My area is to focus on the team. I don't know all the different aspects of it from a revenue standpoint or expenses standpoint, but from a payroll standpoint, it's not really something I've thought about this winter. I feel like we've had the resources to do the things that we need to do, and that's the most important thing. And trying to build a team that can compete year in, year out. Not trying to just redline it for one season. I think the goal is to sort of get in, year out. And I think if you do that, I think good things will happen. And I think that with big free agent contracts over and over and those things, that's going to eventually deteriorate that. So I feel really comfortable with where we are right now from a payroll standpoint. And like I said, I haven't had thoughts about it this winter. It's just I've been able to make the moves I thought we wanted to make.
I was sitting right over here. The Bears are playing the Packers in a playoff game, and I'm watching it. Are they going to win? Are they going to lose? And my phone buzzes, and it says Jeff Passan, Cubs in agreement with Alex Bregman. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I don't have enough bandwidth in my brain. I'm locked in on the Bears and the Packers and ticked off that they may lose to the team I despise more than any other than the St. Louis Cardinals. Were you watching the game? You're a football fan. Are you watching the Bears and the Packers going, oh, I got a call from Scott, or I didn't even pay attention to the game because I was getting the deal finalized?
It's so funny because I took my boys to the Packers game. I think it was December 20th.
Yeah, Saturday night.
It was great. Incredible. The onside kick game. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. Like the kids were so excited. And I sort of called in a favor to Ryan Poles for the tickets. And so the boys were begging me to go to the playoff game. And I was like, I don't want to call in the favor again. I'm not gonna do it. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna watch it at home. So I was really lucky because I would have been at the game standing in the back of a suite doing the deal. Because one thing that you realize in this business is like we don't really control when things happen. The agent's gonna sort of call the game, so to speak. And so Friday night, I was at dinner, and it was getting kind of late, and my phone rang, and I was in my pocket, and I didn't want to answer at the table, but I said to myself, it's definitely Boris. It's Friday night, and I told the guys in the office, I think the Bregman thing will happen this weekend. So I get out of dinner, look at my phone. It was Scott. And so he sort of kind of told me, hey, this is probably going to be a busy weekend. And so then the next day, kind of around noon or so, from noon until the deal got done at 9:30, it was just, I was working the entire time.
And your boys are watching the game.
Yeah, but I mean, the way it was going is like we would tweak an offer, and then I would go watch the game and I was going back and forth. And actually, to be candid, I felt bad because I did not want that deal to break during the game. But we got it done at 9:30.
No more tickets for you.
Was that? Yeah. But it got done at 9:30, and it was great. It was what 21-6, I think, when the deal happened, and I was FaceTiming with Bregman, and I'm like, we were talking about how they're going to come back because they always come back, and it ended up being great. And he was like, I talked to him later that night, and he's like, I'm definitely going to the game on Sunday. And he was there, but it ended up making for a fun night. It was a great Chicago sports night, but
it was incredible.
I was very glad I didn't go to the game because I'm not sure how I would have been handling that, but that was, it was fun.
Who is Jed on the phone with?
I know. Exactly. So
Bregman was a guy that you guys talked to last year.
Mm-hmm.
You just said that you were in on some of those free agent pitchers. Had you gotten one of those guys on one of the bigger contracts, would you have even been able to do this? And when did it sort of become of substance with him this winter?
Well, I think with any offseason, I think there are different, kind of say puzzle pieces of the offseason. And there are probably things that if they'd happened early in the offseason may have altered the other things we would have done. So I can't really answer that. But for Bregman, for me, we were in on him last spring. He's a guy that I think for a long time admired. Even going back to, college, but then, AJ Hinch is a good friend of mine from San Diego. He was his manager in Houston, and he was always raving about him. And just, it's a combination of being a really, really good player, but also being totally obsessed with winning and getting better and making other people better. And, there's a lot of things about him as a player that are really appealing. You think about building a culture, buildings.
That's what they call a force multiplier.
Exactly. And just, I told the story at convention, but, within a day of signing him, he had asked for like the player plans for every player to know what everyone was working on so he could be an alignment. He asked for full access to our database so he could start working on stuff in the database. He asked for a meeting with all the minor league coaches that are in ours. I wanted to talk about our hitting philosophy. And it's like, that's not what happens when you day one, when a guy signs. Right. It's like he's not only focused on himself, but it's like, no, I have a response. This is what I do. I'm going to make sure that I'm working with everybody and I'm making sure everyone's getting better. And it's just, it's an impressive personality. So it's like a combination of getting a really good player and also, like you said, like kind of the force multiplier in the clubhouse was really important.
So he came up in the same organization as the guy you traded for a year ago. I guess different approaches.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, listen, different personalities. I mean, this is incredibly intense. I think that the player that I've been around that probably is most like him would be Pedroia, in the sense of just loves the game, kind of, a dirtbag type of player. But also just, if he goes 3 for 4 and the team loses,
he's ticked.
He's annoyed. If you go 0-4 and the team wins, he's good. And like, that was always when I was with Pedroia. I haven't been with Bregman every day, but when I was with Pedroia, that was really the thing for me that was like the most endearing quality, was that all he cared about is contributing to a win. And his own struggles or whatever it was were irrelevant, effectively. Like, I'm sure when he got in the car and went home, he was thinking about his 4 at-bats, but like in the clubhouse with his teammates, the only thing that mattered was the win. And that's what you want, is guys that are, let's completely focus on winning and losing. You got time to think about your own stuff later, but when you're in the clubhouse, it's got to be all about, like, how do we do as a team?
I asked you last year, I said, boy, that team in Boston, you had Kevin Millar and Big Papi, like these big personalities. Mm-hmm. And I said the 2024 Cubs were about the most boring team I've ever watched. My favorite team, I've never hidden that fact, but there was no like real big personalities. Kyle Tucker was not a big personality, but you had other guys take that mantle and become personalities. You said last year, you can't just go out in the free agent market and go, I need somebody who's a funny guy in the locker room. Yeah. How have you gotten this team to have more personality? Because it's necessary.
Well, first of all, I think Pete really helps that. I think in a lot of ways, like we have a lot of guys that, a lot of first round college, position players that are incredibly diligent and serious. But I wouldn't say levity and comedy is their strength. Right. And I think Pete is he plays with his hair on fire. He's overly emotional at times, which is great. And I think Craig has done an awesome job with him. It's just, he never puts the governor on him. He's like, no, be yourself. Like, do not try to be something you're not. And I think with that, I think the other guys appreciate it. And I think it does add some levity and some excitement to it, but it would be very easy as a manager with a young player like that to try to fit him in a box and don't be like this, be more like these other players. And he doesn't do that. He's like, this is not who he is. And I think it shows some real wisdom. And I think Pete appreciated it. And I think the other players appreciate it too.
That's where he comes from. I mean, he can handle a spotlight.
Yeah.
I mean, literally can handle a spotlight.
Mom was an actress.
Yeah, no, he loves Dad was an actor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he seems like he's been really shy this winter.
God. He's at all the games.
It's great. I love it.
He and Caleb are like best friends now.
I know. No, totally. But it's great though. Like you need players that, that want that. And I'm not saying he's like this, but I'll never forget like being in Boston and, most players when they walk into a bar or restaurant, they're like, oh, I want the private room off to the side so no one bothers me. And I remember, being in a big bar restaurant in Boston during this era, and they were like asking people there was a center table and asking people to move and getting them a different table because David was coming and Papi had to sit in the middle. And it was like, I was like, yeah, but that's who he is, right?
Exactly.
It's like, I want to be in the middle. I want to be in the action.
And I'm going to be loud.
I'm going to be loud. And so to me, it's like, he's also the guy that wanted the biggest at bat always in the biggest moment. And I think there's something to that like, he didn't want to hide in the corner. He wanted to be in the middle. And I think that having some guys that sort of that want that, I think is important, because we have plenty of guys that are just really diligent and serious, which is great. But you need some other guys to take the pressure off that.
How do you attack right field? And I know you can go, well, we play Seiya out there. But a year ago, Craig was saying, yeah, we're going to use him more as a DH because he's had some issues defensively. I know you've got Ballesteros, who I like a lot. I saw the big hit. I was in Milwaukee, bases loaded off Freddie Peralta. Bam, 3-run double. That guy can rake. How do you handle the defensive aspect of right field?
Well, I think a couple of things. I thought Seiya did a really good job in September and in the playoffs. I mean, he played there every day, and I thought he did a really good job on defense. And I think for Seiya, it isn't a physical ability issue to play. He's plenty fast. He throws well. He's just had some miscues, honestly. And I think
eyeballs.
Was that?
It's his eyeballs.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's not a physical thing. I thought he played really well in the playoffs in September. But yeah, I think that's going to be something we talk about and focus on is, there's whether it's days off, potential injuries, making sure that that's an area we can cover. I think that is important. But I do think he can play right field. He's done it a lot. And we had a chance to go get a guy like Tucker last year, and that put him at DH. But it isn't that he can't play right field.
What's the plausible likelihood that Shaw can give you any legitimate outfield time?
I don't see why not. I mean,
good athlete.
I was going to say he's fast. He's picked up everything really easily. I think he can do that pretty simply. This is not something I worry about, honestly. I think he can, when we went to Japan last year, there was like real concern, like, okay, how's this guy going to play at third? He hasn't done it a lot. And then, by the middle of the season, he's a legitimate Gold Glove finalist and he's playing great. So he'll pick stuff up really well. And I think he's a good athlete. He's fast. So I think he can do it. And
he's like a super utility guy for you.
Yeah,
I
he can move all around.
Zobrist, at this stage, he may become a more one position guy later.
I just look at take Bryant, take Javi. We move those guys all over the place early in their career, and there's real value in that. I said earlier, like, seasons are messy. You don't know what's going to happen, and having a player like that you can move around, I think, gives you real flexibility. Those kind of, Ben Zobrist, he's a great example of that, high level example. He was 6, 7, 8 win player with the Rays, moving all over the place. And Joe always felt like it was better for him. He's like, I think he engages in the game more when he's in a different place. I think Javi, I loved it when we kind of put him where the ball was going to be, so to speak. Like, we would look at the charts, and if a day was a second base day, we would put him at second. If it was a third base day, usually for Lester, we put him at third. And it was really like, that's a real nice thing to be able to do.
You could make the case in 2016 that Javi made the best play of the season at all 4 infield positions. And I think he played 1 game at first.
He was amazing. He was amazing. And, kind of a misunderstood player at times, but I always said that, he could be maddening, but he did a lot of things that other people can't do to help you win games. Mm-hmm. And I say the same thing about Pete now, honestly, that there were some at-bats last year that were frustrating, but he just did things on the field that other people can't do to help you win. Whether it's a big homer, whether it's a stolen base, whether it's, a crazy catch in the field. That's how you win games. And I think that, it's nice to have players that on your team that can do things that others can't to do that.
Nico Hoerner had an amazing year. Amazing. And when I told people, hey, we're having Jed come in, we must have got 20 people responded to us. Please tell us you're not trading Nico Hoerner. I know he's in the final year of his deal.
Yeah, how stupid would that be?
Do you envision that Nico Hoerner is your starting second baseman?
We just talked about Shaw as a utility guy. Listen, Nico, we drafted him. We developed him. We extended him. I think, anyone that knows him, he is as solid a person, as likable, as diligent. There's he's ideal. And all the things we were talking about earlier, he's kind of the gold standard for, loving the game, taking it seriously, trying to get better. And I think we saw at the end of last year, making like real adjustments. I thought he was hitting the ball harder. He was getting the ball in the air to the pull side, some things that he had struggled with. There were some periods of his maturation where it felt like he's going to hit a low line drive to right field. And that was sort of like, and get on base, but the ability to pull the ball in the air and actually, do damage wasn't there. And I thought he'd made some adjustments to do that. So I'm excited about Nico in 2026. And I mean, I think our infield is really good. And I think that, Matt Shaw, like, he has every ability to move around. And like I said, seasons get messy. Like, who knows where Matt Shaw can end up playing a lot. We didn't have Chris Bryant playing left field in 2016.
Right.
So, depth is really important.
So Nico will be on this team. Obviously, Wayne Gretzky got traded. Anybody can.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm never going to make declarative statements because I just think that, people call on all of our guys. And so I never make declarative statements, but, listen, he's a guy that we've thought incredibly highly of for a long time. And that we've put a lot of time and effort in, and he's put the time and effort in, and it's a really good relationship.
Well, the thing that, and he and I talked about this for over a year now, specifically with Nico. I mean, this guy does some things that not a lot of people in the game do. And when you look at him as a two-way player too, even when he's not hitting for power, I think he does stuff for a lineup that not a lot of guys in the game do, and helps extend things. That's my take. And I don't know shit, right? But from your guys' analytical perspective, how valued is he as kind of a unique type of an offensive player, not to mention what he does in the infield?
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, he was on like a 5-win player last year on everyone's analytics. I mean, I think he's just a really good player. I think that because he had 7 homers last year, I think he's somewhat underlooked at times, nationally. But yeah, he does so many things on the field to help you win, kind of like we were talking about with those other guys. I mean, listen, like, go back to the Padres series. We won that series because we played incredible defense, and he was a huge part of that. I mean, Dansby had, kind of more opportunities to make great plays in that series, but Nico made a couple incredible plays in that series. I just think that, like, that is our kind of our backbone. And Shaw's a big part of that too. He's a really good defender. And so I agree with you. I think there are a lot of things on the field, base running and taking the extra base, stealing bases. Sometimes homers or X base hits are what everyone focuses on, but when a guy's striking out 7-8% of the time and playing really good defense and running the bases, like, it's incredibly valuable.
Last year in the playoffs, my wife, I buy her tickets. She and her sister go. They get all the home games, San Diego and Milwaukee. And she said, other than the LCS and the World Series in 2016, she says that's the best environment. She's been to 1,000 games. She said that's the best environment I've ever seen for Wrigley Field. It was so electric. Was there a moment there that you're sitting in your suite? Tom was sitting right down by the first row in his seats, that you both looked around and went, okay, we got to take this thing to the next level going into the offseason, because it was incredible.
It was incredible. I thought, really, like, thinking about all those games, I mean, it was the noise, the energy throughout the game. It was amazing. And for me, it was just, candidly, like, the last time we were in the playoffs was during COVID.
And nobody's there.
And then in 2018, our bats took the crowd out of the game, and so, I mean, really, it had been a little bit of time since we had electric home games like that. It was amazing. And I felt like I had, those moments like, I'm thinking, this is really incredible. And then, you go down after the game and, talking to Craig about it, and he's like, oh, that was amazing. All the players were talking about everyone. And so it's like, you sort of had that thought internal, like, oh my God. And then it was just confirmed by everyone. Like, it was really amazing. And I thought those 2 Brewers games at home really took that to a whole nother level, which I really felt great about, because, like, it was really loud in Milwaukee. I mean, those first 2 games I was super impressed with their crowd as well. And then we come home and it's like, oh, well, we just did the same thing. And, no one could win a road game in that series, which was unfortunate. And, we didn't hit in that last game, and they pitched well, but, that series was pretty unbelievable from a crowd noise standpoint and an engagement standpoint.
The Shota Imanaga decision, You didn't pick up the option. And then you do give him the qualifying offer, and he goes, I'm in. There's been reports the Cubs were thrilled he took it. There's other reports that, wow, the Cubs never expected it. They thought they'd just get a draft pick and they'd move on. What do you say to critics, me, that go, you wouldn't let that guy start game 5, Craig Counsell, but we're paying him a $7 million raise? How do you respond to that?
Well, I think for the first, 1 3/4 years that we had him,
he was really good,
and he struggled at the end. And the body of work for him over his time with us was excellent. And candidly, going into September, it was like, okay, well, pick up this club option. He's been fantastic for us, and he struggled. And I think that gave us some pause. Okay, we're going to not pick up the club option, but to get him back on a 1-year deal was fantastic. He's been working really hard. I think he's very proud. He's certainly gotten some bad habits last year. I do think the hamstring injury had something to do with it. I don't think he was hurt, but I think that his mechanics, he never felt like, I don't think it wasn't getting the same extension he was getting before. I think when he's right, and we've seen it enough, when he's right, he's throwing fastballs and splits and people on he's throwing 91 right by guys because he's got real carry in the zone. And obviously that went away. And then you wonder sometimes when your mechanics change, it just felt like the hitters were picking up his pitches quicker, whether those were tips or whether that was just like whatever that is, the hitters can see. Certainly the deception wasn't there. But you're not wrong. I mean, I think that, we didn't throw him.
Yeah, he is.
Well, I'm saying you're not wrong about how he pitched at the end of the year. I think he struggled.
Gordon.
He struggled in
you're dead wrong.
He struggled in
contract.
He struggled in game 2. He struggled. Obviously we didn't throw him in game 5, but when you look at the body of work, I mean, I think that to say he earned his money many times over on the first 2 years of that deal, and I just think it makes a ton of sense to bring him back on a 1-year deal, knowing what he's like.
Somebody close to him told me before you ever signed him the first time, that dude was hanging out at Old Orchard Mall in Skokie, and they said he'd go get a Starbucks. He'd walk around this mall because his agent was here.
Yeah, and
that they called you and said, he really likes it here. Is that how it came together?
We had a lot of conversations with them. I mean, going into that winter, everyone felt like he was going to get $100+ million. And we weren't going to do that. But like, as it became clear that the price was going to come down a little bit, we were very involved. But that's like one of the most endearing things about his personality. He wants to be part of this culture. He wants to learn English. He wants to travel and see things. And he's just, I mean, if you know him, he's just a really curious person.
He's one of those guys that's not boring, Cap.
Yeah, I want to have dinner with that guy.
No, he's awesome. Yeah, he's fantastic. Like I say, he's just really a great dude. I think his agency has done a really good job with him. Like I heard that, like, he doesn't live in the city like most guys, and he lives in the suburbs, but he drives home like no without any handler. He handles himself here, without anyone. At the ballpark, he has an interpreter, but he doesn't have an interpreter away from the.
He would be awesome to sit and have a meal with.
Oh no, it's his
now you like him.
His nickname is.
I've always liked him. I just didn't know.
His nickname is the pitching philosopher, and he's constantly talking to other people, other teams about their pitches, and I mean his relationship with Skeens, I think, is actually kind of endearing. Like,
it's cool.
One guy's throwing 100, one guy's throwing 92, but like they're completely different. But I think that Skeens has joked about it. Like I think he's just really curious. He's always asking about different things.
How do you do this?
Yeah, and so, I think he's a guy that's made himself a really good pitcher by being really diligent.
Mike,
and
isn't that what you
Mike Imanaga II.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's really a terrific guy, and I think if he wants to, he's one of those people that will have a job talking about baseball, somewhere, because he's just such a bright baseball mind.
I mean, on a 1-year deal, if this guy, for a team that has designs on getting to the World Series, if this guy's depth, if this guy gives you good innings, they don't even be great. I mean, it's a value deal on a 1-year contract. I think.
Gordon, you're on our side. I love it. This is
it doesn't
happen every day.
Now.
Yeah.
Slow your roll a bit there, because
Yeah, what do you got for me next? Yeah. Back in character. All right, we're good.
So
Take that.
last year you guys trade your first round draft pick to go big on a guy that
Cam Smith
was 1 year. This year you trade your top prospect to get pitcher under control. This is something that we haven't seen in recent years. And obviously, you were doing some building, and you're gonna hold on to young guys. Is this just simply the fact that you guys are that firmly in your window right now, and you're trying to win now, or is this a bit of a departure?
It's a good question. I would say you kind of take each decision individually. I feel like last year, that's the thing we needed. We needed that kind of presence offensively with that team based on 24. And I think we were right. I think like what we saw in the first half when Kyle was right, I think he was the right move. Obviously, going out and getting a starting pitcher with swing and miss that we controlled was something important. I think we had a lot of guys that induced contact, and our defense really helped. But I think, finding that kind of arm was really important. But all that said, I think that part of it was like we have a number of young players that, our system, I think we have an incredibly highly ranked system, kind of in 24 or so with those guys. And, right now, Michael Bush is playing first, and Matt Shaw's on the team, and Pete's on the team, and Cade's on the team, and, Palencia had a big impact. And so we have a number, Ben Brown and Wicks, I think, are really going to contribute this year. So we have a lot of young players, but obviously we're in a time when we have a chance to win. But all that said, I think it's really important. Like, we're going to be active, and like, how do we, build back our farm system? I think that we've had a lot of graduations. We traded some guys away, and, now we have to redouble our efforts to, make sure we have good drafts and make sure we do that, because I am very aware when I think about so the end of the last run prior to COVID, after 2020, I think we got to a place in, I'd say 2019, where we had a lot of big contracts on the books, so we were pretty inflexible financially. And our farm system, we traded some guys away to kind of fuel that fire. And so I always think like it's really important to have both types of currency available. You want to have financial currency available and sort of not bloat your books. And you also want to have young talent. And that's something you've got to constantly focus on, because I think, to me, that's like, when you think about a healthy organization, it can't just be about the players on your major league team. You've got to have both those other things as well.
I'm curious about this. You brought up what happened right in that 2019, 2020 period with the contracts. You also brought up earlier that the Dodgers are a team that you're envious of. Don't point fingers at or anything. They're playing within the rules, the whole thing. That's the sort of the standard. When you look back at that period of time, you could have gone a number of directions had things just been normal, had there not been a pandemic and all the strangeness that surrounded that. Not to mention, coming out of the pandemic, there was the winter work stoppage with the labor talks. Because in 2021, after you guys shed some contract, that team was in first place in June. And so there were choices, it seems like, that could have been on the table. Do you look back at that and wonder what you might have been able to sustain, even within those challenges, had that not happened?
So I think we could have, theoretically, sustained that for a year or two longer. But I think doing that, there's no way we're where we are right now. So, I feel like, that probably, like, we could have, we traded Darvish that winter. We could have, kept pushing, but eventually we were going to hit that cliff. And so, to me,
but you would have in theory kept Schwarber, and he would have been a longer term guy. And
yes. And I spent a lot of time talking to Kyle at the party the other night. I mean, I think one of the things with Kyle that's always going to be a hard one. There's no DH in the game at that point,
right?
Right?
Do you think the decision's different if there was a DH?
I think a lot of things with him may have been different if there was a DH. I think that when I think back on, first of all, I think I give him so much credit. I mean, he has put himself in amazing. He's in great shape. He's continued to mature as a hitter. But I also think being able to take him off the field, and when I look back at his time with us, he had some decent offensive seasons, but like his defensive work really like dragged down any war that he was going to have. And then once the DH was in, so I do think
we did know the DH was coming. We just didn't know exactly.
We didn't know when.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, listen, I mean, ultimately, like, I think we could have been aggressive and push at that point. But I think I look back, I think that, you know, this team that we have now in a lot of ways was sort of born of resetting at that point. So we were going to given what I was saying before, I think we got to a place where we weren't that healthy financially. We didn't have financial flexibility at that point. We didn't have our farm system needed to be reset. I think those trades ended up, you know, creating that. Obviously, we got, you know, a great young player in Pete out of that deal. You know, Palencia has done that. We've, you know, Owen Casey was part of that. So I think we got a number of really good assets in players.
One guy.
Yeah, we got a number of assets in those deals, but also by not re-signing some of those other players, now, you know, we had the financial flexibility to bring in other, you know, a guy like Saya. We extended Hap. We brought
you guys
Dansby.
have more financial flexibility than that, I think.
But at that point, at the end of that run, with where we were from an arbitration standpoint, you know, we were at the end of those guys. So it was a question of like extending those guys long term or making those deals. And I mean, like I said, could we have really tried to win for another year or two? Maybe, but it would have been at the expense of where we are now. And I feel really good about where we are now. There might have been
a short tunnel to get through and keep a certain core, and then instead of it being more or less a 5-year process.
But I would say, I mean, we had the second half of 21 and then 22 that we were not competitive. But I mean, frankly, we should have made the playoffs, and, you know, but for a bad last 2 weeks of September, we should have made the playoffs.
Field. I mean, not a
sure. But I guess my point is, I think we ended up doing that with only having a year and a half of like non-competitive.
Right, 23, you could have made the playoffs.
I should have made the playoffs. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So in terms of, we don't know what the future holds. There might be a labor stoppage. There might not be. Looking at your books, they're about, and I know you've added since I looked at it, Bregman on a multi-year deal, 5, 2 with Maton, but you have about as clean a books as there is in the game in terms of commitments, not knowing what the landscape's going to be. That's a great thing, except if they come to you and go, hey, guess what? We figured it all out, and here's the rules. You better get busy, right?
Yeah. But I think we're in a position to be nimble, and I think that's really important. Like, we don't know what the rules are going to be. People can speculate about it, but it's just educated speculation, or even uneducated speculation in some with some articles you read and stuff. And so the bottom line is we don't know what the rules are going to be. You know, my sense is there's going to be changes. I would probably expect that in some way. But we're nimble, and I think that's the nice thing, is that we have created financial flexibility. We are going to have to replace a number of players at the end of this year. We may be,
or extend.
I was saying maybe replacing those players with those players, but the point is, like, we have a number of players that are going to be free agents, and we're going to have to make those decisions. And so we do have a number of hard decisions and real decisions coming up. But better to be nimble entering a period of uncertainty than to be not nimble and unable to make adjustments based on where the rules are. And so it was somewhat strategic doing that. And, you know, it's going to be a lot of work. But at the same time, I feel like we will have the ability to make those decisions.
How much did that impact some of the stuff you might have wanted to do this winter? Because I know one of the theories I had, I might have even mentioned it to you at the GM meetings, was that, you know, if you play by the rules now big, like the Dodgers are doing, it's going to be no worse than getting grandfathered in any kind of restrictions that come down the road. And you might be in a position of relative strength.
Yeah, I just don't think we know. I mean, and that's kind of what I meant by the uncertainty, is we just don't know where this is going to go. So yeah, there's certainly worlds in which those teams aren't impacted. There's probably worlds in which they are. but no one really knows. And so I think we are in a good position to move in various directions.
By the way, do you think there's going to be a stoppage, and isn't there already a salary cap?
I don't know on the work stoppage. I mean, I know that it's going to be a constant topic of conversation this summer. But I don't have any feel for it. I mean, I've done this 25 years, and this is probably, I guess, my 5th or 6th CBA cycle, whatever it is. And I haven't missed a game yet, And so, I would say
keep it that way.
I'd probably say half of those cycles were not really contentious at all. And like probably half of them were, where there was like real trepidation. I remember, I think it was 2002. I could be wrong with this. I think it was 2002. I remember it was mid-August, and there was like real questions whether there was going to be a stoppage in mid-August at that. And so that was, that one was contentious. And then obviously the last one, where we end up delaying the season by a week, that was, but otherwise it's been relative peace. So I don't really know. I can't even really speculate on that. And then as far as the cap, I'd say no. I mean, I guess I would look at it, I don't think there's a cap currently. I mean, right now we've got, 5 teams that are paying 110% tax. I mean, the Dodgers,
they just pay whatever
they're paying Tucker $119 million this year when you factor in the tax. Obviously, Bo Bichette, I think it was like $85 million. So I think that the way that people are treating the tax, I would say they're not treating it like a cap. I guess that's what
like if you're willing to go over, okay, whatever it is.
So no, you asked the question, do I think there's a cap? No, I don't. I think that like people have shown the willingness to pay exorbitant tax bills.
Well, let me ask you this. You've been in the game a long time, and you know how all the other leagues work too. And a big part of your job is making the numbers work. The other leagues that do have salary caps tend to share their revenues a lot different. I mean, is it even...
Well, just the NFL, there is no local TV money.
Right.
It's all national.
Yeah. So, I mean, isn't that the first step in any kind of hard salary cap, is to make sure that the owners have their own house in order that way?
Well, I think you mentioned the NFL. I mean, the NFL is sort of a totally different animal in that way, in the sense that there is no local.
Everybody gets the same TV share.
Exactly. And so I think that allows that, I mean, and again, they came to that agreement a long time ago, but like it was, pretty wise when they did. And now that makes it really simple. There's no local TV. I'm definitely out of my expertise on the cable stuff, but yes, certainly the disparity in the cable dollars right now is driving a lot of what we're seeing in the market. And I think that it's clear when you look at just what's been happening with these different RSNs and these different things, or teams getting their rights back and all those things, that it's obvious that area is going to need to be changed,
overhauled.
I don't know where that goes. Again, that's not my expertise, but there's no question that that's driving the disparity in payrolls. Is that there are teams that that RSN market that was once really lucrative is not lucrative for a lot of teams now.
Before we let you go, strangest place you ever made a trade, and is there a guy, he could be long retired, you go, I actually thought we were getting him and it didn't work out? Like a big name player.
I know who you're thinking of.
Well, I have a million of those stories from Boston. I mean, Theo and I met with A-Rod for 3 days in New York, and that
he wanted to come.
Yeah, 100%. I see Alex at games now when he's working for Fox, and like it, I always admire the fact that he was willing to take less money. He just wanted to be a Red Sox at that point.
Versus Jeter.
Yeah, it was. Aaron Boone blew out his knee, and that was that changed that. I'm trying to think of strangest places I've made deals. I've made deals on the phone in so many. Like, you are where you're just going to make a deal wherever.
Take calls in the bathroom.
I certainly have. I don't think I've ever done a deal in there, but I've definitely done a lot of deals in restaurants and random places like that, where you just have to step out and do something. And
so have you ever been at a dinner, like 4 people. You're at dinner and you're like, I got to take this.
Yeah, I
walk away and then come back to the table and go, I just traded for whoever.
Usually not trades, usually it'd be like a free agent, but I've ruined every possible function. Like whether I've ruined,
you ruined it for us too, man.
I know.
We're at dinner and we see.
I've ruined Thanksgiving. I've ruined Christmas. Actually, this year, this was a classic one. Like the deadline for Amai was January 2nd this year, and so we were involved in that a bit. And my last phone call, I think, with the Boris Corp that night was like at 2:40 in the morning. It was there on the West Coast, and it was New Year's Eve. So I was texting and calling, and luckily I'm old and boring, and we happened to be
at home
in Florida, but we were in a hotel, and I was like watching fireworks and like negotiating a deal. I mean, this is probably not the best, Thank God my wife met me when I was already doing this, so she's used to it. But
it is what it is.
That's what I was saying earlier with the Bregman thing, is like the way the industry works. It's how it works. Like the agents will decide, randomly. Like I had one. This is great. So Scott Champerino is the number 2 guy for Boris. And last year I came home from, I think I was in Nashville for Thanksgiving with my in-laws, and I came home. And probably 11 o'clock at night, Champ calls me on Sunday night after Thanksgiving. He's like, hey, Montas has signed. This deal for Boyd is going to happen tonight. And I'm like, thank God my 2 dogs ran away, which is the only reason I was still awake. And so I was wandering our neighborhood trying to find our dogs, and I was negotiating with Champ. Oh
my God.
And I had to go, in the end, I had to go to the Winnetka police, and the dogs were there, and
somebody found
your dogs got arrested.
They got arrested. Yeah. Well, they were truants, whatever you want to call them, And so, this all happened while I was negotiating Boyd's deal, and I was kind of giving Champerino like a constant rundown, like where I had to go to the police station to get the dogs, and I was doing this, and so I think I got that deal done at 2 a.m. And I honestly, I always thought the only reason we probably were able to do the deal is because I was still awake, because I was trying to find these dogs. So that was
good.
That was classic. And then the other one, I know he's coming in and I think he's giving me this chair. I'm a big walk and talker. And I'm not this time of year, but certainly 20,000 steps a day just walking around the phone, because I just don't like to sit still. And so whenever I know I have a bunch of agent calls or whatever, I'll just go for a walk. And a lot of times I'll stop by Getz's house on the way, make him walk with me and stuff like that. So I feel like he's the same way, and his wife complains about it too. Just like, I'm not going to sit in my house on the phone, so I might as well go out and wander the neighborhood. And so I do that a lot too.
Last thing, you've said this to me. I heard you say this at the convention. I don't listen to sports radio. I don't pay attention to what you guys say. Yet I heard the same thing from your predecessor, your boy Theo, and then I would get the phone call like, how the F could you say that? And I'm like, I thought you didn't listen.
Yeah, I don't want to out my mentor, but yeah, he was he did read stuff. So no, I mean, for me, I think I've said this. I took Twitter off my phone more because I was just wasting time, and I was like, what am I doing?
You're on Twitter.
I'm not on Twitter, not anymore. I mean,
you used to have a fake name Twitter.
That was his.
Someone created that for me, but someone who was on Twitter a lot created that for me. But I took myself off Twitter just because I felt like it was just a time waste thing. Felt like I was scrolling, sometimes doom scrolling all the time. And I didn't like that. I'm not on social media at all. I don't listen to talk radio. I do read articles. I read,
But your buddies don't say to you, somebody who's not in the business, your friend up in wherever you live goes, dude, did you hear what Cap and Gordon were saying about what you did or didn't do in this trade?
The only one I get is when it gets really loud and bad. I'll get people to be like, hey, you okay, man? And I'm like, oh, I guess it's loud out there. But it's good. I mean, I think it's important for me to sort of maintain. Like I'm going to try and make the best decisions for the Cubs and not be influenced by outside forces. And also part of it is just I try. It's almost like a forced self-discipline that like I know myself. Like I love sports, so if I start listening to talk radio, I'll be into that. If I on Twitter, I'll just find myself like I'll just constantly be reading articles and doing stuff. And so to me, it's just like, okay, how do I like, I have 3 kids, I have this job, like I want to try to like have some level of free time and
of a life.
And if I do those things, I can't. But I truly don't. Talk radio, that is, I can say this, like talk radio has never been on my car ever. But like I said, mostly because I know myself and I know that like if I go down that road, it's just I'll sit there and listen. And
plus if it's in the morning, it'll be him. So you might
exactly. I get enough of your time.
Thank you for coming in.
Always, anytime, guys.
Appreciate it.
When do you head to AZ?
I'm going down the 9th. It's sad.
Driving?
No, I don't drive anymore. It's sad to me though because today's the 27th, and my mom's birthday is tomorrow, and so every year I would start the drive on January 28th, and I would get there on the 1st, and then the kids would come out on the 1st, and then we'd put the kids in school out there because they were so young, and now the kids are too old, so they can't come out the whole time. So I don't go out till later. But it was, it's, those times, those like chapters of life, like that was great. I love driving out there with a dog. I love the fact that we, like as a family, would be out in Arizona the whole time. And now it's like, I'll probably go back and forth a little bit just to, and they'll come out a few times, but no more dogs out there, no more drive. And I got to wait another week.
Yeah, your dogs are troublemakers anyway.
A little more cold.
I know, exactly. So anyway,
thanks for being here.
Anytime, guys.
Take care. Appreciate you.
See you.
All right, that is a wrap special edition with Jed Hoyer, always very generous with his time. This is the Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel.